In episode 141 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we talk about functional fitness. You can find the show notes for this episode at 40 Plus Fitness Podcast /141. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Welcome. I'm going to kick this one off a little bit different than I have some of the other podcasts because I do have a couple of announcements and things I want to get out there. You may have noticed if you've tried to visit our website that we're starting to make some changes. And they're pretty big changes. We're actually moving the site from the older.fitness over to a new website specifically for the podcast at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com. And so all of our show notes and all of that will be written up and put over there. But any of the links that I've given you in a previous episode will still work. They'll still take you to the same place. It's just going forward, all of our podcasts are going to be posted at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com. And you can go there to access any of the content that you want from this show. Anyway, I did also want to make an announcement that we are launching a challenge for the month of September, and this is the Sugar Detox Challenge. And what I'm challenging you to do is to join us by signing up, and you will get an email from me each and every day talking about sugar. And so our overall goal for the month, the whole 30 days of September, is to eat less than 50 grams of sugar per day. Now that might not sound like a big deal, but considering that most people in the United States eat on average about 150 pounds of sugar per year, you're really talking about going from somewhere around a third of a pound every day down to what's not much more than a couple tablespoons. So I'm encouraging you strongly to come join us on the challenge. You can find that at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com /challenge. Again, that's 40plusfitnesspodcast.com /challenge. And you can sign up to join the challenge. I'm going to give some prizes away. A lot of times when the publishers send me a book, they send me duplicates. So I do have some books that I can give out. I also am going to have some exercise equipment and some other things I'm going to share as prizes if you make it all the way through the challenge. So again, come join us at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com /challenge. So today we're going to talk about functional fitness. I'm going to take some time to define what functional fitness is, and then I'm going to talk about how you train for functional fitness, and I'll talk about some of the tools that you can use or that are very common for use while we're training for functional fitness. The first step typically when you're going to train for functional fitness is to kind of get a feeling for where you are. And so what you're going to want to do is basically kind of benchmark yourself, define where you are today. And some of the questions that I'd encourage you to ask yourself is, do you have any physical limitations such as injuries or weaknesses? What are your strengths? What are your current demands on your body? And so by going through those three questions and kind of understanding where you are physically, what you're not good at, what you need to work on, what you need to build it stronger, and where you currently are, it's going to sort of help you get a roadmap to define what you're going to do within your fitness training as you go forward. So the next step after you kind of get that benchmark and understand where you are is that you're going to look at where you want to go. And with my clients, I typically call this their vision statement. And this is where they're defining what health and fitness looks like. So for you, it might be that you enjoy doing hiking and you want to be able to continue to hike in the hills. It may be that you have some grandchildren and you want to be able to play with them and pick them up and have them around and do some things with them. It might be that you enjoy sports like tennis or golf or volleyball. And so you take the time to define what fit and what healthy looks like to you, and that's your vision. That's kind of your understanding of what you want to do. And then finally now, because we know where you are and we know where you want to go, we can build functional workouts that fit that pattern, to fit what you want to accomplish in your life. And so now the work you do is going to be much more relevant, much more focused on where you want to be. And a lot of times that helps people keep more engaged. And obviously, we went over goals in a previous episode, and you know that one of the keys to writing a good goal, a SMART goal, is that it's relevant. And so again, I'll go over SMART real quick here. It's not really part of what I want to cover, but I think it's important is, a goal, a good goal, a SMART goal is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So again, you've set a vision for where you want to go. You know where you are. Now you just need to write that map, write that plan. And that plan is that you're going to build certain things. Like you may need to build strength. You may need to build endurance. You may want to build balance. There's other things that you'll be focused on. So now working with a trainer, and I do recommend, if you're going to get into some of this training, the functional style training, because of the nature of it, it really is important to work with a trainer. And a good trainer is going to help you assess your weaknesses so you really know what your movement pattern problems are. You know where your mobility issues are. You know your muscle imbalances. You know your weak points. And then because you've said what you're strong at, we can enhance those. But so I do, again, strongly recommend that you consider working with a personal trainer that can teach you the form of these exercises and give you the right exercise program to work for you. Because typically, if you have weaknesses, it's really important for you to fix those weaknesses before you really start emphasizing your strengths. And the reason I say that is, let's say you have a weak core. And if you don't have a very strong core, but you have very strong legs, then maybe when you're doing your deadlifts or squats or maybe another functional style exercise, because they tend to be more compound movements, you have a higher propensity of injury because you have those weaknesses. So it's very important to understand your weaknesses and to build on those weaknesses first. Now, after you've gotten those weaknesses kind of shored up, you start seeing that improvement in the weaknesses. Now you can start actually progressively pushing yourself through the strength piece, through the things where you're stronger. And it's not always a strength thing. It might be, you might be hypermobile. You might be very, very mobile. And that's one of your strengths. You might have great balance, and that's one of your strengths. So if you want to continue to enhance those strengths, we just want to make sure that we address some of the weaknesses before. And I'll give you an example. When I was working on a lot of functional fitness, I wanted to build endurance. I wanted to build stamina, basically the same thing, strength, and my ability to move pretty quickly, so agility. I was doing CrossFit, and in trying to enhance my strength, I had kind of not really held my core. I really didn't have the strongest core, and that started hampering my training. And as a result, I did have an injury to my lower back doing deadlifts. So I'm all healed up now because, again, I focus on my weaknesses, get those honed up before I start, again, pushing on where I'm stronger. So let's take a few minutes and let's talk about some of the tools that you might be using for functional fitness. Now, obviously, the deadlift and the squat, those exercises are going to use a standard dumbbell. Standard dumbbells and barbells, and I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with those. Those are common in every gym, practically, besides the machines. But machines are probably the least functional pieces of equipment in the gym. So I wouldn't recommend trying to do anything what I would call functional with a piece of equipment, because the reality is your grandchild is not sitting on a rail, and you can't just pick up your grandchild up and down the rail. Your grandchild might be swinging and kicking. So some of these other tools that you can use will help you build your strength in a way that's a little bit more functional. So the first one I want to talk about is probably the most common, and it's called the kettlebell. Now this is the little ball, basically, or ball with a handle on it, and they come in various weights. They're kind of awkward shaped. So, when you're moving it, it's going to have a center of mass that's going to shift a little bit more. Unlike a bar or a dumbbell where you pretty much control the full center of mass of that bar or that dumbbell, with a kettlebell you don't. That it swings in your hand. It pivots in your hand. So you don't always have the center of mass. It changes a little bit, much like if you were picking up a child or a bag of groceries or something like that that just shifts. So, with this, you can work on strength, balance, and endurance. One of the most common examples of an exercise for the kettlebell is called the Russian kettlebell swing, and it's basically an exercise where you bring the kettlebell between your legs, and using your hips, you thrust the dumbbell up. I mean the kettlebell up, keeping your arms, just using your arms sort of like a pivot, like a chain. It's then going to allow the weight to go up to about chest high, and then you drop it back down between the legs, and again you use the hip pop to try to bring that back up. And this is really good for building strength in the posterior chain. So you're going to build your back, your butt, and your hamstrings all with this exercise. So again, it's a very good exercise for if you're going to be picking up something like a small child or a bag of groceries or a box. This is a good exercise to make sure you're strong in that way. Another one that's common, fairly common now, is called the agility ladder. And these were used predominantly with sports teams, but more and more I'm seeing them crop up in some of the functional fitness areas. And basically, if you envision this, it's like a piece of cloth that's shaped like a ladder, and you lay it across the floor, and then you're going to do various movements through that ladder. Typically, as you go forward, you're going to try to be moving side to side, shifting your foot. So you may put, left foot in, left foot out, right foot out, and you're literally going from side to side through each of the little boxes on the ladder. And this is really good for working agility and speed. Another common piece of equipment that you'll often see in functional fitness is called a medicine ball. And it's basically a large, soft, weighted ball. And it comes in various weights. And the most common exercises that you'll see with the medicine ball are wall balls and ball slams. Medicine ball slams. Now, the wall ball, you basically are holding the ball at your chest. You're going to squat down, and then you get to a full squat. And then as you stand up through that squat, you press up through that squat, you're going to use your arms and use the momentum of your body to basically send the medicine ball up against the wall that you're facing. And typically the targets are anywhere from 8 to 12 feet. And so you're basically going to launch this up to that point, and it hits the target. And when it comes back down, you catch the ball and go back down into the squat. And you'll repeat this. That's very good for endurance. It's a very metabolically challenging exercise, and it does build strength across both the chest, the triceps, the shoulders, and the lower body. And then the other one I talked about was medicine ball slams. And this is basically where you take that medicine ball above your head and then you slam it down against the floor. Pick it back up and you do this exercise again. Squat down, pick it up, and then do it again. And basically this is going to work your chest, arms, and your lower body. Okay. Another one, probably a little less common as we go through some of these, is battle ropes. Now, battle ropes are these long, thick ropes, and by thick I mean something around an inch and a half to an inch. So it's grasping these. You typically it fills your hands. They're pretty thick ropes, and because of the length and the thickness, they can get rather heavy. So then what you're going to do is you're going to basically attach the middle portion of this rope against a post or a wall. And then you get on both ends, and you're holding the ends while the rope's kind of fully extended, and you're basically going to slam the rope or create wave patterns with the rope based on whatever you're trying to accomplish. And this is going to be using your back, your chest, your shoulders, your legs, and your core. And it's a really good all-body exercise and quite good for endurance and strength. And again, the longer the rope is, the thicker the rope is, the heavier it's going to be. Another fairly common, again, as I go, there's probably less and less of you that have seen these things, is the weighted sled. Now, the weighted sled was fairly common for use in practicing sports like football, but more and more it's being used for functional fitness. And what you're doing is you basically have a sled that you can stack weights on. And as you go to, and the more weight you put on it, the heavier and more resistance you're going to have. And this will slide across the ground or the floor, depending on where you are. And you want to grasp the handles on this, which is going to kind of have you down in that motion like you're pushing a car. And then you're just basically going to push the sled as quickly as you can across the distance that you're trying to cover. That's really good at building endurance and depending on how far you go. And then also strength, particularly strength in your buttocks, your hamstrings, and your back. And then there's the sandbags. I like the sandbags. Sandbags are probably one of my favorite implements. I actually just ordered a set. It doubles as luggage, and it doesn't fill with sand. It actually fills with water. But this is something I can actually take when I go on a trip. I can take this with me, and then I can fill it up with water when I'm at the hotel, and then I can use that as an implement to work out with in the room, and I can empty it out, dry it out, and then I don't have to worry about it. I just pack it up and pack my clothes, and I go home. So anyway, sandbags come in different sizes and weights, and so there's a lot of utility with this. And some of them have handles, but I actually prefer the ones that don't have handles because it gives you more effective functional, because you have to grasp it rather than hold a handle. And sometimes that grasping piece is a lot better for building some strength. It makes it a little bit harder to work with, but that unevenness and the shifting that occurs with either the water or the sand is literally going to make it, again, it's not a fixed point of gravity, so you do have to adjust to it, much like you would if you were carrying a child or something like that. And again, you can build an entire workout with sandbags. I mean, that's one of the cool things with sandbags and body weight, and you can do an entire workout with just those. And so again, it's a very, very good implement to consider having and using in your training. The next is club bells, and you may or may not have heard of club bells. There's also things called maces, but basically the club bells were invented in India. And you could think of them, they literally look like clubs. They're either made of plastic, metal, or wood, and they're slightly weighted on the end. And what you're doing with these is typically swinging them in a pattern, basically swinging your arms around, and you take different patterns. And what these are really good for is they help start building some mobility in the joints, because the joints are now a little bit weighted, moving through a dynamic stretch, the full range of motion. So these are really good, particularly in working the thoracic mobility. And they can get pretty heavy. You can go pretty heavy on these once you build up to it. It does take a little bit of time, but over time you can get heavier and heavier with these club bells. And actually use them as a function of building strength, particularly grip strength. And then the last one I want to talk about, well, no, there's two more, sorry. We're going to talk about tires. And you've probably seen some of this on TV and maybe even have seen someone doing this, but these old truck tires or tractor tires. And basically the people are flipping them over, which entitles, basically you have to squat down, get your hands under the tire. You start pushing it, lifting it up. You get your knee and hip into it, and then you basically thrust it forward to a point where you now just push it over. That's a very, very good strength and endurance deal. And also, just again, trying to get that work done. You're using a lot of power, and you're training yourself for power, because when you're moving something like that, you're not just using strength. You're also using speed. And when you mix strength and speed, you're creating power. And that's one of the best exercises for building overall body power. And then the final ones I want to talk about is using things like rubber mallets and sledgehammers. And typically you'll hit these against a rubber tire, maybe the same tire you were just flipping. You can hit them, you can swing them. Typically you'll hit something that's not going to get damaged with you hitting it. And that act of the swinging or using the mallets is going to build grip strength, body strength, and from the sledgehammer perspective, the sledgehammer one really does kind of raise testosterone. It's just been kind of proven. Chopping wood is maybe one of the best boosters of testosterone there is. Slinging that sledgehammer is going to have a similar effect. So swinging the sledgehammer, hitting that big tire, and just getting all that energy out. It's going to be really good for building endurance, strength, and again, like I said, particularly with the mallets, when you're hitting something, you have to grip that mallet pretty heavy. So it's going to do a lot to really help you with your grip strength. So I've gone over a lot of exercises, and again, you may or may not be able to take what I'm saying and actually picture them. You can go to YouTube and look them up, but again, I just strongly encourage you, if you're going to get into a program where you really want to start focusing on these non-traditional exercises, and you really want to try to build up to some level of functional fitness, work with a professional that knows the exercises, can look at your form and help you get through this, because it is very easy to injure yourself if you're not careful with some of these exercises. So I really am a strong proponent of functional fitness. I do believe that most of us should be considering some level of functional fitness training in our programming. It might not be the only thing we do, but just on it, kind of understanding where your weaknesses are, what you're trying to accomplish, and having some of these non-traditional exercises built into your programming, I think is extremely valuable, and most people should look to start building much more functional fitness in their lives. And if you're looking at a coach or looking at the opportunity to hire a coach, I'd like you to strongly consider Forever Fitness. You can go to forever.fitness and learn more about our course there. I basically set up a 1-year training program with you. We worked the first 10 weeks on a very intense schedule to try to get you all you need to understand and be able to be your own coach. But I'm there with you the whole time. It includes a consult, includes a Facebook group with accountability. There's also regular webinars, all kinds of interaction, all kinds of tools, and all of the exercises that we've talked about today, along with some others, will be added to the inventory of exercises. So I'll have an entire library of exercises that you can kind of go through. I explain the exercise very carefully. I demonstrate the exercise. And so you have that to go back to. And then again, if there's ever a time that you have a question about your form on an exercise, you can shoot a video of it and send it to me, and I'll be glad to critique your movements and let you know how you're doing. So again, that's at forever.fitness. Come on over and join us today. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet with Susan and talk about her success story in health and fitness. Have a happy and healthy day.